are watching Global Eye. The United Nations is holding a two-day conference of global envoys in Afghanistan in Doha. Taliban government is sending its officials to Qatar to meet top UN officials and envoys from up to 25 countries. This will be the first time Taliban will be participating in the talks since it took charge of the country in August 2021, following the United States' withdrawal of its troops after 20 years of war. The UN Political Affairs Chief, Rosemary DiCarlo, has clarified that the meeting is not about recognition of Taliban, but about engaging with them. The meeting will be focusing on the way forward for Afghanistan and will also have sessions on private sector business and counter-narcotics. The meeting will also have an impact on India's equation with Afghanistan and how it will impact its security structure. The United Nations is being widely criticized for engaging with Taliban to discuss the future of the country without a single Afghan woman representative. The UN president responded to the criticism saying, and I quote, "I would hope we could get to that someday, but we're not there yet." End of quote. The Taliban are reportedly demanding that no Afghan women be allowed to participate in the UN meeting in Doha. Now, joining us to take this forward is Anju Gupta, security analyst and former DGP of Uttar Pradesh. Ms. Gupta, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Give us a background of the UN-led Doha meetings on Afghanistan.
Thank you, Parikshit. As you know, with the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan, Taliban became de facto rulers. And it raised the manner in which Taliban took over raised huge fears about instability in Afghanistan and across the region and beyond, as we've seen the impact of instability in Afghanistan on the global community. As it is, Afghanistan was witnessing huge humanitarian crisis, which has become worse since then. Within less than a year, Al-Qaeda chief Zawahiri was killed in a UN drone strike in Kabul, which raised further fears about the presence of terror groups in Afghanistan. There were already concerns about production of narcotics, and the human rights violation was becoming a big issue under the Taliban, especially because of the ban on the employment of women and on ban on girls above 12 going to school. The inclusivity was not there, something that Afghans can't live without. I think it's a must. The engagement of the world was there on different issues. This time around, the world community, the global community, led by US, I would say, through the system of United Nations, continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan even after Taliban takeover. But because of these variety of issues, public flogging, etc., many countries became very restless as to whether it was really prudent to continue to engage with Afghanistan or not, or whether the engagement was actually strengthening the hands of Taliban and not of common Afghan. So in the background of this, United Nations took initiative. The Secretary General took an initiative of creating this Doha format. The first meeting was held in May 2023, in which the United Nations invited the envoys and special representatives of key countries, over a dozen countries, and of international organizations. So this is the background of the Doha format.
Right. When it comes to the outcome of the first and second meetings, have they really led anywhere in terms of Afghanistan, its progress, its governance is concerned?
The first Doha meeting was actually called to deliberate informally with the key countries whether, in what manner, if at all, the engagement with Afghanistan should continue. Because engagement with Afghanistan in a way meant engagement with Taliban also, because they are the de facto ruler, even if not recognized. So in the first Doha meeting, there was unanimity that the world could not afford instability in Afghanistan, and that is why the engagement with Afghanistan must continue in any manner, which was already in the pipeline, bilateral, multilateral, humanitarian assistance, etc. So this was the outcome of the first meeting, that engagement with Taliban, with Afghanistan was a must for making it more stable. And in the second meeting, which was held in this meeting, the United Nations did not invite either Taliban or other groups, as we call them, Afghan civil society, including women's group. But in the second Doha meeting, which was held in Doha in February 2024, both Taliban and civil society, including women group, were invited. But Taliban refused to come, saying that they wanted to be the sole representative of Afghans. So Taliban did not, take part in that meeting, in the second Doha meeting, while the civil society and women group did take part in that, in some of the sessions with the global community. Taliban, of course, had a separate meeting after this big meeting with UN. The central message of Doha second was
Right.
that somehow this format should try and get Taliban on board. They all felt that it is very important to get Taliban to become part of the Doha format to take all these issues forward. And the United Nations has been saying this, and they're still saying it, that is part of the process. To expect that something will happen overnight is not possible. And we've seen, Afghanistan has been, I would say, involved in conflict for last 4 decades. So this is largely what has happened in Doha 1 and 2.
Right. Now, Taliban is not recognized by any country as the government in Afghanistan. Now, what is the significance of them joining the third meeting?
So if we look at the Taliban's engagement with the world, many countries have opened up their offices, if not embassies. Many international organizations have set up their offices in Kabul. And about over a dozen countries have handed over their embassies to Taliban for their nominees to run those embassies. But this is without giving recognition, right? This includes China, where President himself received the ambassador. And Taliban is also flying its flag on its own embassy in China. Taliban have been part of many bilateral. You should see the the frantic diplomatic activity Taliban undertake. Doha is kind of becoming a hub from where they operate. So they meet a lot of other ambassadors, they meet World Bank, they meet IMF, they meet UN representatives, and what have you. So Taliban have already been involved with the global community in one way or the other, even without recognition. Taliban are seeking economic support because this country cannot stand on its feet and they want recognition. So I think the big outcome of this could be that Taliban is now developing a stake in the global deliberations on Afghanistan. So I see that as a significance of Taliban taking part in Doha 3.
Right. My final question, as we're running out of time, Ms. Gupta, could you see some concrete outcomes from this meeting? And what has been India's level of engagement with Afghanistan since the Taliban took over?
Okay, I'll answer your second question first. India has largely gone with the international community in terms of supporting the multilateral, engagement with Afghanistan for the sake of Afghans, giving humanitarian assistance, opening a small technical office, and pitching in wherever the international community wanted India to pitch in. So to that extent, I think India's position, it appears, is one with the global community in terms of, on any of these issues. This is one. Second, the point that you raised was that what is the outcome expected? Well, Taliban has already scaled down its level of participation. The spokesperson is going to be leading the delegation. Pakistan has already started leveling allegations afresh against Taliban supporting TTP. And the civil society and women's group have been extremely critical of UN even holding this meeting. So I would say these three are going to be big obstacles, but nevertheless, I think one thing that this Doha 3 can achieve is if there could be some consensus with Taliban, for UN appointing an envoy, because appointment of a UN envoy is directly linked to starting the process of intra-Afghan dialogue. So that could be maybe an outcome, but we don't know. Expectation from Doha 3 is not that high, in the face of 3 obstacles I've just listed. But it's a step forward.
As you said, be it 1, 2, or 3, it is a step forward, and it shows that Taliban has a growing stake in governance and also in the international arena, and people want to engage with them. But the framework is yet to be decided. Thank you very much, Ms. Gupta, for joining us on the program. Let's look at our final story on Global Eye. Iranians are voting to elect their next president following the death of their former president, Ibrahim Raisi, in a helicopter crash. It's a four-way battle between conservative Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, hardliner Saeed Jalili, moderate Masoud Pezeshkian, and conservative Mustafa Porham Madi. 69-year-old Masoud Pezeshkian is hoping for a breakthrough win against a divided conservative camp. The election in sanctions hit Iran comes at a time of high regional tensions between the Islamic Republic and its arch enemies, Israel and the United States, as the Gaza war rages on.